The Marshons by Neil Cook. It was just a normal day with me and the wife taking the kids for a walk in the countryside on a hot Sunday, when something strange happened. There was a strange noise as if something was landing in the field nearby. One of the kids went and ran over to the field to see what it was. It was 15 minutes later when my son still hadn't arrived back. So I went to see what happened to him, and as I was just about to go, he appeared around the corner. And I shouted to him, "Where the hell did you get to?" He replied, "I found some fish in a pond, so I stopped to try and catch them." But the way he was speaking didn't seem like Pete. He didn't seem himself at all. Anyhow, I asked him if he had found anything. He said no in a really angry voice. I slapped him across the face for speaking to me like that. Then he started to walk back as if nothing had happened. When we arrived back at the house, Pete went straight back to his room and locked himself in. My youngest son John asked me what was the matter with Pete. I answered, "I don't know, son, he's behaving rather strange." Then John went to bed, and me and wife was all alone downstairs. After watching the television for a while, my wife came over from the armchair and sat on my knee and started to kiss me to try to cheer me up. But I wasn't just in the mood for it yet. But she continued to carry on doing it and wouldn't stop, so I just pushed her off my knee and walked out of the house to get my cool back. After walking for a while, I stumbled up on the same place where I first heard that strange noise. So I decided to go and have a look in the field where my son went, because my son wasn't telling me the truth. So I decided to go and have a look for myself. It was a good job there was still a little light about, because I didn't have a torch, but I should hurry up before it got dark. When I came up to the field, there was some kind of big massive hole covered up. I went over to the hole to see what it was. Then something began to happen. The ground started to move. There was a strange noise underneath the ground. Then it stopped when I got to the hole and I removed all the camouflage. And there was all tunnels leading different directions. I jumped down into one of the tunnels and followed it. I came to what looked like to me a control room of some kind. I went over to the control panel to see what all the equipment was for. I couldn't tempt it anymore. I had to touch one of the buttons on the control panel. So I did. Then I waited to see what happened, but nothing did happen. Then the lights began to start flashing on and off. Then I heard footsteps. Well, about 20 people running, so I hid in one of the passages to see what they was. I thought to myself, I bet it's some kind of Russian or USA spaceship or something. Then the footsteps came closer. I began to worry what they would do if they caught me hiding. Then they began to run past. I slid the door open to the passage which I was hiding in. Then I saw something strange that wasn't human. They was alien. They had 3 arms, 2 legs and a head with just 3 eyes. Then from then on I knew that we was being invaded by Marshons from another planet. I had to get in touch with the army somehow. After the passage was clear, I ran as fast as my feet would carry me. I ran back to the house to phone the army. Tell them what had happened. Then the army arrived. They had about 30 tanks, about 500 soldiers with them. Then I finally got to speak to the commander who was in charge. I told him everything I knew and where the spaceship was. I told him about my son and he insisted to see him, but I told him he was asleep. But what the hell? He would have to be woken up at some time. So I showed him to my son's bedroom, but he was still asleep. But the commander went over to Pete and called me over. I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "Look at the back of your son's neck." I said, "He's got something sticking in the back of his neck." So I pulled it out. It was some kind of transistor, like you find in a radio. That must have been the thing which was controlling his brain. My son was saved, I said to myself in my thoughts. Then one of the tanks went off. We rushed out of the house to see why the tank was fired. By the time we got there, the tank was destroyed. There was some of the aliens came out. The tanks the tanks started to fire at them, but the tanks didn't seem to have any effect on the aliens. The shells just bounced off them as if they were made of rubber. Then the commander radioed through to the bombers to drop their bombs. Then about 20 bombers came swooping down above our heads, and there was bombs dropping everywhere. But the bombs still didn't seem to have an effect. Then the commander gave the order to retreat. The commander told me to get my family out of the house and out of their vicinity, along with the tanks. So we did as he said. Then the aliens came out in their hundreds and thousands. There was at least 10,000 of them things. Then the next day arrived, and the aliens were still coming out in their thousands. By now there were at least 100,000 of them things. By the rate they were going, they would have control of the Earth in a matter of days. Then the Earth would be known as another Mars. Unless the army was going to do something about it. Then the commander came back from a meeting with his superiors and told us that there was only one more chance. That was to try our new weapon which was known as the Micron Ray. I asked him what the Micron Ray was. He told me that it was an automatic laser gun. I suggested that we should use it because nothing else seems to work, I said. Then the commander said that the Micron Ray hadn't been tested yet and that there was one problem. I asked what it was. He said if it doesn't work it could cause a dimensional blockage. I asked what that meant. He replied it could mean that the Earth would go into another ice age. I told him that it didn't matter because if it didn't work, the Marshons would have control of the Earth and would kill us all. The commander radioed through to the headquarters to have the Micron Ray sent here as soon as possible. We waited for it to arrive while the aliens got closer. When the Micron Ray finally arrived, the commander set it in position on top of the hill, pointing down at the centre of the aliens. Everything was ready now. The commander gave the order for the Micron Ray to fire. The ray went off like a bolt of lightning. It was some kind of laser. The aliens didn't know what had hit him. Then the Micron Ray stopped firing. It had broken down and couldn't be fixed. We all stopped what we was doing to see if the Micron Ray had any effect on the Marshons. But it didn't. The Marshons kept coming and coming. Then something happened. The Marshons all stopped and they began to disintegrate along with their spaceship. In my thoughts I told myself, I'm glad I didn't die. Thank you.